So, what we're looking at here is a story about a massive geopolitical chess match. It all kicks off when some critical peace talks completely fall apart. And it ends with a checkmate that, believe it or not, threatens to bring the entire global economy to its knees. All of it centered on one tiny, critical waterway.
And it all boils down to this one number, 21 miles. That's it. That's the whole width of the Strait of Hormuz, the incredibly narrow channel of water that separates the Persian Gulf from the open ocean. And you know, what happens in this little stretch of water can absolutely wreck the global economy.
For decades, military strategists have called it the world's jugular vein. And for good reason, right? It is the one single point that a huge portion of the world's energy supply has to pass through. We're talking about the fuel for factories in China, the heat for homes in Germany. It keeps the lights on all across Asia and Europe.
Just try to picture how much stuff flows through that tiny gap. It's about 20%. That's 1/5 of the entire world's energy supply. All the oil, all the gas, everything that makes the world go round has to squeeze through this one single choke point.
Okay, so this is where Iran comes into the picture. For 47 years, Iran has been sitting right there overlooking this strait, and through all the revolutions, sanctions, and wars, it's held this power in reserve. Kind of like a chess player who's been protecting their queen, just waiting for that perfect moment to make a move. And that moment? Well, it arrived with unbelievable speed. On February 28th, a new war kicks off. A few hours later, peace talks collapse. Right after that, Iran makes its move. And then, just 24 hours later, the U.S. Navy responds, setting the stage for a massive showdown.
So, right after an Israeli-U.S. strike, Iran unleashes its big opening move. But here's the thing, it wasn't about sinking ships or launching missiles. Now, it was something way more elegant, and it was designed to hold the entire global economy hostage.
What Iran did was implement this devastatingly clever strategy called an insurance blockade. See, they didn't have to physically stop anyone. All they had to do was make the strait seem so dangerous that the big insurance companies would just pull their coverage. And no insurance means no shipping. It's a perfect economic checkmate without firing a shot. The chain reaction was just so simple, it was brilliant. Iran sends out a single broadcast, a threat to all ships. That's all it took for insurers like Lloyds of London to declare the area a high-risk war zone. So of course the shipping companies had no choice. They had to halt their vessels. And just like that, the world's jugular vein grinds to a complete stop.
The economic shockwave was immediate and, frankly, brutal. Oil prices just exploded, going from $70 a barrel to over $107. Gas prices spiked, markets tanked, and fears of inflation went through the roof. Suddenly, Iran, a country that was losing a war, had the entire world in a chokehold.
But Iran wasn't done yet. Oh no. In a truly wild move, they decided to turn this global crisis into a cash machine. They basically set up a toll booth. They announced that, hey, if you're a ship from a friendly country like China or Russia, you can pay us a fee and we'll let you pass safely. They were literally collecting cash while the rest of the world was panicking. I mean, on the surface, this looks like a moment of absolute strategic genius. But hidden deep inside this very clever plan was a single fatal miscalculation. A tiny flaw that was about to unravel their entire strategy and turn their greatest strength into a crippling weakness. So what did they miss? What was the one piece of this giant puzzle that Iran's leadership, right in their moment of triumph, just completely failed to see? The answer is 55. While Iran was busy running its toll booth, maritime intelligence trackers started noticing something really weird. 55 Chinese ships, container ships, oil tankers, you name it, were stuck inside the Persian Gulf. Trapped. So get this, Iran had given its most important ally, China, permission to pass. But here's the thing about a war zone. Permission is useless when missiles are flying. No captain was going to sail into that, and no insurer was going to cover them if they did. So, Iran had accidentally trapped China's fleet and completely cut off its own allies' supply of oil. And that colossal blunder handed the United States the exact opening it needed. It allowed the U.S. Navy to pull off a decisive countermove, a kind of open water checkmate that just completely flipped the entire board on Iran.
Look, trying to fight Iran in the narrow strait would have been a nightmare. That's Iran's home turf, it's full of mines, missiles, places to ambush. So the U.S. Navy did something different, something smarter. They moved the blockade out into the open ocean.
They decided to play the game on their terms in wide-open water where there's nowhere to hide.
And the American terms were just beautiful in their simplicity. They were totally non-negotiable. The U.S. Navy just parked itself in international waters and said, nothing leaves until everything leaves. It's open for everybody or it's closed for everybody. The choice is yours, Iran.
And that was the checkmate. See, 90% of Iran's oil exports come from a place called Karg Island, and all of it has to go out through the strait. So by blockading the exit in the open ocean, the U.S. surgically cut off the regime's last major source of revenue, the oil money that was keeping it alive, all without having to fire a single shot into the strait.
But this crisis did more than just expose a fatal flaw in Iran's plan. It forced the entire world to ask a question that, honestly, should have been answered 40 years ago. And the answer is a permanent solution that literally changes the geopolitical chessboard.
And that big question is this. What if we didn't need the Strait of Hormuz at all? What if there was a way to just completely bypass Iran's choke point and make its biggest strategic weapon totally obsolete forever?
Well, it turns out the answer already exists, it's just in pieces. Saudi Arabia has a massive pipeline called the Petrol Line that runs from its oil fields all the way to the Red Sea. From there, the oil can go into Israel's Eilat-Ashkelon pipeline, cross the desert, and pop out in the Mediterranean, completely avoiding Iran.
The shift it's just profound. We're talking about more than just some diplomatic agreement. This is a shared strategic necessity. It creates an economic and security link between Israel and the Gulf states that is about as durable as concrete.
So we're left with this one last thought. Iran waited almost half a century to play its queen, thinking it was making its ultimate game-winning move. But you have to wonder, in doing so, did it accidentally force the world to just build a highway around it, effectively signing the paperwork on its own strategic irrelevance?